Welcome back. I don't know, okay? I don't know how this sounds. That's all I got. That's all I got. So, I know you don't have anything to look at. Don't look at me. Look away. But I'm going to be talking about Careless People by Sarah Wynne Williams. This is the book that Meta Facebook, because I don't want to call them Meta, because I don't care. Facebook, Mark Zuckerberg and company were trying to suppress. So, a cautionary tale of power, greed, and lost idealism. So once I heard that Mark Zuckerberg, I didn't want to peek this out. I was like, oh, I need to read it. As most people did. It just like, what's it called? The Streisand effect? Like you're trying to suppress something, so then naturally it just spreads anyway. So, got a copy. Read it. If you can see all the tabs. Have a lot of thoughts. This could be crooked. I'm always conflicted with nonfiction because I'm like, is it spoilers? But like, there's not really like a plot or a plot twist to spoil, but just know that I'm going to be going into a lot of things that happened in the book, so it won't be a general overview. Like I have things that I will read from the book or like specifically mention. So if you don't want to know anything about this, then I would exit this video and come back after you've read it. Or if you don't care, stick around. I went into this and did not realize it was a memoir. I thought it was just like expose, but I didn't realize it was written. Well, obviously I knew it was going to be from somebody inside, but I didn't know it was like memoir. But this is a memoir, okay? So I don't rate memoirs, although I don't fault people who do, because I know it's like they're rating kind of how the story was told, less about rating the person's life. But I've just had a history of not rating them, so I'm not going to rate this. But I'm going to still tell you my thoughts about it. And I have a lot. So now the title, Careless People, refers to all the people who are working at Facebook, including Miss Sarah Wynne Williams. Now, she may not include herself as a careless person, but I believe she is, and other reviews that I have read would also agree. But as it's starting as a memoir, this is going to have fuck all to do with the rest of the story. But it starts out wild. She's from New Zealand, and she's telling a story about going to the beach with her family, and she gets bitten by a shark. Okay? And they take her to like, I don't think they're near a big city, so they go somewhere, this little clinic thing, and this doctor essentially stitches her up. And is like, she may moan about it, but she's alright. And I was like, you know, I'm not a doctor, but a shark bite sounds like it would warrant a little bit more. So they go back. They're staying in like a, not a minivan, like a camper. And she is in pain and she's feeling terrible. And she keeps telling her parents this, and they're like, go lay down. You're being dramatic. Like she keeps getting up to tell them this. And they're like, go lay down. You're being dramatic. And finally she's like, I can't breathe. Like I'm having trouble breathing. Spoiler alert. She had like, I think it had like perforated her bowels or something. She has like internal bleeding. And it is a very gruesome, detailed story she tells in here about how they drove her back, that her dad didn't seem to be in a hurry. Like they're driving over a bridge and he's kind of like looking out. But they get her back and this doctor essentially, warning, incoming. Warning, incoming. Is like hacking. Next thing I know, the doctor comes back, gets out a very large blade, like a mini axe, and starts thwacking it down, carving into my left arm, then my right arm. It's like I'm a piece of meat being hacked open. No anesthesia, no warning. And I'm beyond the point where I have any control over my own body. I can't move or speak or raise alarm. And he does that, near her ankle, splitting the skin, plunging the blade to the bone. Apparently in severe trauma cases, where it's impossible to find a vein because blood pressure is so low, it's standard ER procedure to slice into the arms or ankles. And then when she woke up, her mother says, "Aren't you lucky the doctor saved you?" She asked for a pen and paper and wrote down, "I saved myself." But that's it. So it starts out. I was like, wow. And so I think that sets the tone of how she views herself in different systems or different situations. Like, I could take a lot of shit. I've saved myself from worse, right? Sarah was a New Zealand diplomat and international lawyer. So I think she became a lawyer first, but she was a diplomat for New Zealand. But for some reason, she was so enamored with Facebook, she begged, and I mean begged, these people for a job. She ends up getting the role of, I'm gonna tell you, manager of global public policy. Now, this role did not exist before her, but this is in 2010 when she started reaching out to them, was like, I see Facebook as this amazing thing that has this potential to change the world, especially by influencing politics. And I think you guys need someone who's basically like a diplomat for Facebook. And she's like, that person should be me. And they're like, girl, we're not thinking about that. Bye. And she keeps like relentless. I'm like, dang, girl, you ain't got no self-respect. I know that's not nice. Whatever. But 2010, which also would like to note, The Social Network, the movie about Mark Zuckerberg, came out in 2010. I don't know the timeline of which came first, but interesting. Anyway, by 2011, she has begged these people enough that they're like, okay, girl, the job is yours. I don't even really know what it is. I don't even know this real job, but it's yours. And she's like, great, can't wait. So obviously she was correct, right? That Facebook influences global policy. And here's the thing. I don't think that I can sit here and say that she is to blame for what Facebook would go on to do in regards to elections and politics and things around the world. I don't think I can say that because maybe they would have eventually made this a rule, or they would have eventually started focusing on themselves. We don't know. But at that time, 2011, they did not have somebody in this role. They were not focused on that. And she really spearheaded them in the direction of politics. Now, a big thing throughout this book is Sarah works closely with the big people at top. She's not somebody small down here where maybe there's an annual conference and you glimpse Mark Zuckerberg from afar. No, she's like in meetings with him, emails, flying on private jets with him, and Sheryl Sandberg and people at the top. And sometimes I feel like while she was admitting this, it also felt like she wrote it in a way of like she was so far removed from them. And I'm like, no, girl, you up there. You with the big dogs. You one of them careless people. Now, I obviously don't know Miss Sarah Williams, but she was so desperate for this job and this role. And in the beginning, it was obvious that I don't know why they were like, girl, have this job. I don't know why, because in the beginning you could tell they're like, I don't know why she's here. What are we doing? Because she consistently at the beginning is like, we need to get Mark in the room with these heads of state. And I'm like, in my mind, why? Why? Even you are the leader of this massive company that is mostly worldwide. I get it. But like in my head, I would never be like, yes, Mark Zuckerberg needs to be in the room with people who are the heads of states or of countries. But that was her thing. She was like, all these different conferences and stuff that maybe he would be invited to or something that he was like, oh, I don't care to go or would go, but it's not about meeting people. She's like, no, we need to get him. He needs to be meeting with Obama. He needs to be meeting the person in charge of China. Why can't I think of the word? He needs to be meeting these presidents and people who are heads of these countries. And I'm like, why? And so again, I cannot blame her, but it's like, you definitely had a role in shaping that and how he would begin to see himself and value and position his company. Do you know what Jim said? Like, they were more focused on like just growth. Because she talks about, while she does talk about politics and she does talk about other things, she doesn't really go over a lot of them, but like, you know, they acquire Instagram, they get WhatsApp, and just talks about how, of course, in capitalism and corporations, growth. That's the thing. They're like, okay, well, we have 2 billion users. How do we get another billion? So that was really their focus, is like growth. More people equaled more money, because that meant more data, more advertising, all of that stuff. They had we're not looking at politics, but that was her focus. She came in and she's like, I want to figure out how to get him in the room. And slowly she does be able to start doing that, like at different conferences and stuff, like getting him closer to these people who had influence. And at first it is not going as well. And then obviously over time, it's, as her role is growing, she's becoming more established. This becomes a regular occurrence where they're starting to think about it now, like, oh, maybe we do need to talk to China, maybe we do need to talk to Russia. And it's just setting the stage for a lot of bad things to happen. Now I have many tabs here. Okay, the world is conspiring against me, so I don't even know where I left off. All right. I was just telling my patrons, because I am sprinting, that I'm finding a hard time reviewing this, because it's hard not to go through every little tab that I have. But my tabs include shady moments, happenings, political moments, politics, trifling things Facebook does, and not smart things Sarah does or thinks. So that's what they were broken up into. But some of it is like, I don't know if this got cut out, but she works with these people. Like I said, she's not like a small person, low on the totem pole, has no connection to the people at the top. She's literally right beside them. She is having meetings with them. She's flying on private jets with them, going to these conferences worldwide with them. And so it's not like she's hearing things through the grapevine, like she's witnessing, they're saying things to her, they're doing things in front of her, and yet she stays, I think she works here for 7 years, and is always like, she just keeps giving them the benefit of the doubt, and I'm like, but they're showing you who they are. Here's a random one early on in her time there, where she wanted, because again, she believes Facebook is this great place, and she wants them to be connected to something that's positive. So she has, I don't know if she comes with the initiative or somebody on the team, to have an organ donation initiative that's like promoted at Facebook. So she wanted Facebook to stand for something in the world, and so it's like a registration drive, like encouraging people to register as an organ donor, but they're not collecting information, they're not coordinating organ donation, they're not transporting organs around the world. But Cheryl is like, Cheryl seems baffled by this and fixates on why we haven't designed the initiative in a way that would allow Facebook to play a bigger role in the collection of data, marketplace of organs, and more. Miss Girl. Now, I know these people at Facebook are smart, but ain't no sense up here. So she's telling her, the legal, religious, cultural reasons why that would not be possible. And Cheryl says, do you mean to tell me that if my 4-year-old was dying and the only thing that would save her was a new kidney, that I couldn't fly to Mexico and get one and put it in my handbag? Yes, bitch, that's exactly what? Who says that? Rich people. No sense. Just evil. That's crazy. But literally, she was like, oh, this would be a great opportunity to not only set up something so that if my rich ass wanted it, I could immediately go use it, but also we can collect data off people. But of course, in the beginning, she's like, okay, maybe, that's just a one-off. But they keep doing things and saying things like this in front of her, and she keeps being like, well, no. Later on, chapter 18 is titled Red Flag, because it's, at this time for Mark, it's hard to envision a future of Facebook without China. So I wrote here, funny reading this in 2025, and that is, what's not in Mark's email is more telling than what it is. There's no acknowledgement at all of the moral complexity of working in an authoritarian country that surveils its own citizens and doesn't allow free speech. That's funny, right? But this is in July of 2014. And so Google has already withdrawn from China. Mark, Cheryl, and Elliot already knew this because they had a breach of human rights activist accounts on the service. But there's no question to Mark Zuckerberg of like, should we do that? Should we operate in China even though we know there's already some shady things going on? For him, it's when we're going to do this. This is on my list. It must happen. And so she says, this is in 2014, I don't believe Facebook is going to get into China. The mission of the company, making the world more open and connected, is the exact opposite of what the Chinese Communist Party wants, particularly under President Xi Jinping. I can't imagine they'd allow us in, and I don't want to help Facebook try. And I wrote, let's see what happens. That's on page 146, and we will come back to that. So all of these earlier years that she's there, I would say that she doesn't bring up political affiliations as much. It seems like people are mostly somewhat liberal, at least to her understanding. But they hire, is this 2014 or 2015, this dude who, of course, went to Harvard because they're about their Harvard people. And so she has a new manager that she reports to, essentially, this guy named Joel. He's this big Republican dude. I think he worked with George Bush. And she said just a few weeks after he takes over the job, he starts hiring a political sales team to push politicians here and abroad into becoming advertisers. The idea is if politicians depend on Facebook to win elections, they'll be less likely to do anything that'll harm Facebook. Because there have been some instances before this point where governments have launched investigations and complaints into Facebook. For like one instance was in Germany because they were wanting Mark Zuckerberg, to do a better job at taking down hate speech. They were having anti-Semitic hate speech on the platform, but they were like, but we just love free speech and we don't really want to get involved. And so there's all these different countries, there's multiple, that have had issues with Facebook and their lack of monitoring and controlling terrible things that are said on their platform. And so now this guy comes in and is like, if more politicians depend on Facebook to win elections, they'll be less likely to do anything to Facebook, less sanctions for Facebook's. And here I go. She said, I find this all repugnant. I feel alienated from this new regime from the outset. And I put, and yet you stay, because it's still at 155. So we're in 2014, 2015. There's just multiple instances, and I know. Now, this is a different market. As someone who was a diplomat, worked at Facebook, high up at Facebook, or you could have gotten another job. I'm so sorry. And she does end up over the course of this thing, she has 2 children, which is very traumatic on her, and she goes into depth into that, and talks about needing health care because she's in the United States, which I understand, but I'm like, girl, you could have been looking for another job if you found this so repugnant. I feel like looking back on it, she can say, I find this all repugnant, I'm not going to help with China. But I'm like, at the time, did you? Because if you were so opposed to it, then you would have been looking elsewhere. That's just my opinion. That was a different economy back then. You could job hop easier in 2014. Like another instance of what can Facebook offer them? What will head off regulation and change the global narrative on Facebook? And this is in one of her performance reviews that the guy is like saying that she like rolls her eyes in meetings and stuff. And she said, was it maybe when one of our board members was suggesting to our largely Jewish leadership team that Facebook needs to get much closer to the far-right political parties in Europe because that's where the power is shifting to? This was the proposal, that we should use the election support and campaign tools we were offering to U.S. presidential candidates and offer them to the alternative for Deutschland, the far right in Germany, and to Marine Le Pen and the Front National, the far right in France. Getting closer to these political parties and helping them into government would be the most effective way to stop governments from regulating Facebook. There's another, this is March 2016. WhatsApp, which Facebook owns, refused to hand over messages in a Brazilian drug trafficking case. One of their own employees goes to prison, and Mark Zuckerberg's like, oh, well, that's too bad. He does not care. These people are terrible. And she's seeing all of this. She is seeing this hands down. She has the emails in here. She knows the communication that's going on. And I'm like, and you continue to stick by these people. Something else, like I can't. There's just too many things in so many countries, but I'm just going over a couple of tabs that I have. This is talking about the new president of the Philippines, who had weaponized Facebook to propel himself into power. He was an outsider candidate running against insiders by using paid ads and a network of social media volunteers. His campaign chipped away at facts with political pages and masquerading as credible sources of information to pump out half truths, and that becomes a repeated thing in multiple countries, not just the US election, where these people are paying all this money to use Facebook. They are pumping out all of this like a fake news and like incorrect information, and people are buying it up, eating it up, and Facebook's just like, well, we don't want to regulate what people are saying, and they are just getting paid all of this money. And I think at one point there is something that's happened in Myanmar, and they're saying where like the moderators, I don't even think they have anyone who speaks that Burmese, the language, but they're also all the way in Ireland, like the one or two people that know how to do it. And at one point she was trying to reach them to like moderate stuff on the platform, but like their platform doesn't even really work with like the way their alphabet is structured. Like it is just set up so poorly. It's just too many instances and too much that she saw and had a hand in, and still was like, but this is, I know Facebook can be good. Like she sees Sheryl Sandberg wrote that book, A Lean In, and then she sees how Sheryl treats female employees, and there's like some really weird, like kind of coercive things that Sheryl does. They're like on a private, were they on a private jet, or maybe they're in a hotel room, and she just kept being like, no, you need to come sleep in my bed. And the way she treats female employees, and like she made this whole thing about being empowering women and having children, but she's like doing the opposite at the business. And I'm like, that wasn't enough for you not to work there. Not even just like the politics. It gets to a point she's being sexually harassed by her, like a boss above her, but she sees what's happened to other people. There's a point where she's like in the office, and I think they're contractors, and this lady is like falling on the floor. I think she's seizing, and no one is doing anything, and they're like, oh, I don't know who she is. And that wasn't even leadership, that was just people around, and she just stays. And I know we stay in toxic work environments, and but she's like pregnant at one point, and they want her, I think she's close to giving birth, and they want her to fly, I think it's like to India, and her husband's like, no, because you're like close to giving birth. And she just doesn't stand up for herself, because I guess she doesn't want to lose her job, or she's afraid to push back. And so she does all of these things to put herself in these really dangerous situations, including endangering herself towards the end of her pregnancy. At one point, they were going somewhere where I think there was a warrant out for Mark's arrest, and they're like, okay, well, he can't get arrested, we need somebody else to step in. And essentially it was supposed to be her, and I think she did. Her husband was like, no, absolutely not. It ended up being somebody else who was going to be the person, but then they went and it didn't happen. But still, I'm like, girl, you cannot keep putting yourself in these situations, especially then after she had her first child, like her rushing back to work. I think it was, I don't know if it was their first or second, like she had a lot of complications, she had all these surgeries, and she was still working on her maternity leave. She had like a performance review when she came back. He was asking inappropriate questions about her body, her breastfeeding, like all of these things. Granted, that was towards the end, but I'm just like, there's so many instances where I'm like, why did you stay? You achieved your goal essentially by creating this role and getting Mark into these places, getting Facebook into politics. And no, it's not her fault of what happened, of like how Facebook decided to let corrupt leaders and parties use their platform. But it was, I mean, she played a role in it getting there. I have a lot of complex feelings on this book. I knew some of the things, but maybe not as much detail, like around like how Donald Trump got elected. I didn't realize how many different countries and elections that Facebook had influenced, but there was just so much that she got to witness firsthand that I'm just like, there was just a lack of self-reflection on her part, like no statement in there of like, maybe if I had done this, or even not like blaming herself, but even if she would have just like looked back and been like, I wonder what would have happened if I hadn't begged Facebook for this job, or if I hadn't been so adamant to get Mark Zuckerberg in the room with these people. Like, there's just endless times I just question. Like, I put this one right here, I wrote, how delusional are you? Let's see. This point, she's saying Facebook's rising globally. He has politicians around the world wanting to see him and kiss the ring. He has a global network, more political capital and wealth he could possibly spend, and he's wondering what we can use it for. And so I thought, if he's thinking about using Facebook to do something else, something more in countries around the world, and he's wanting to understand how the international system works or doesn't, he needs to see it up close. With that in mind, I pitched going to APEC. It's bigger than the international conference I took him to in Panama. Vladimir Putin and Xi will be there, and this time Mark wouldn't be showing up as a salesman trying to push internet.org or Facebook. I wanted to put him in situations that he'd be in if he were a head of state. I'm quietly hoping these leaders will knock him around a little, get real with him about their problems with Facebook, so he's forced to grapple with the harmful effects it has in many countries. This is at like page 259, so I don't know what year this is that we're in, but I'm like, at this point, girl, do you really think that's going to have any effect on him after all the other bullshit that you've seen? But that's what she continues to do, is just like believe like, maybe if I just get him with the right people, they'll knock some sense into him. And I'm like, girl, it's been years. Let's give it up. Another one. Part of my pitch for attending APEC was the opportunity for Mark to meet with the president of China. By this point, Mark had been trying to meet him formally for years with no success. And his eagerness to make it happen was only increased by the screw-up in Seattle where Mark posted the photo, the back of Xi's head. While I didn't believe in Facebook's strategy for entering China, I did see value in a meeting between the two. If only as a reality check for Mark. How is that going to be a reality check for him? Like, girl, she's just a delulu bird and it's so frustrating. Here's some random trifling things that Facebook did. Oh, yes, them creating their... this guy's team was in charge of the people you may know feature. It said in the beginning they didn't ask permission to do this. You could tell Facebook don't take my contacts, but then when you open Messenger they take them by default. And that team was instrumental in developing the people you may know tool, which is described by Mastable as Facebook's creepy as hell tool because it's a growth at all cost approach. Of course. Facebook deploys something called a double iris to avoid paying taxes. It's something Google and Apple do as well. The way the double iris works is that when one of these companies makes $1 selling ads, or iPhones in Apple's case, in Italy or Germany, or elsewhere in the European Union, that revenue can be shifted to Ireland for tax purposes, and then onto a tax haven country like Bermuda that charges no tax at all. Are we surprised? In 2017, a document leaked that revealed Facebook's offering advertisers the opportunity to target 13 to 17-year-olds across the platforms, including Instagram, during moments of psychological vulnerability, when they feel worthless, insecure, stressed, defeated, anxious, stupid, useless, and like a failure, or to target them when they're worried about their bodies and thinking of losing weight. Basically, when a teen is in a fragile emotional state. So, they monitor teenagers' posts, photos, interaction, conversation with friends, visual communications, and interactivity on and off Facebook's platform, and use this data to target young people when they're vulnerable. In addition to the moments of vulnerability listed, Facebook finds moments when teenagers are concerned with body confidence and working out and losing weight. It says, at first blush, it sounds pretty gross, sifting through teens' private information to identify times when they might be feeling worthless and vulnerable to an advertiser flogging flat tummy tea or whatever other rubbish. But Facebook's apparently proud of it. They said the advertising industry understands that we buy more stuff when we are insecure, and is seen as an asset that Facebook knows when it is and can target ads when we're in this state. They target young mothers based on their emotional states. They target racial and ethnic groups. Like, it's a gross company that is all about getting your data, using that to sell you things, and also letting corrupt countries around the world use Facebook to manipulate elections. Like Cheryl says, 13 to 17-year-olds, that's a very important audience. Advertisers really want to reach them, and we have them. We're pretending we don't do this. Like, she's saying, like, we should be proud of this. She touts Facebook's ability to target based on sex and age, stating, "We think that targeting and measurement are significant competitive advantages for us. Just in basic targeting itself, just age and gender, we're 38% more accurate than broad-based targeting according to Nielsen in the US, and that's just age and gender." So, again, she said, "Why," I asked Elliot, "can we stop targeting depressed teenagers or anyone else in a vulnerable emotional state? We'll still make a lot of money. It can't be that much of our business." Again, she's delusional. I think everyone should read this. I think this is important to know all of the different ways that this company and these people operate. But just know that I don't want to say you have an unreliable narrator, but maybe that's the best way, because it's not like she quits Facebook. She is fired essentially for bringing up a sexual assault case against her superior. So had that not happened, she probably would still be at Facebook. I'm just be honest, because through this whole thing, even towards the end, she was still saying like, "No, that's not who we are," or like, that's not what they're really meaning. I really hope they can do better." And so I don't know if I've done a good job at reviewing this, because it feels really hard without going like chapter by chapter, country by country, year by year. But essentially, it's what you know, right? Facebook is a shady ass, and that's being that's underselling it company. But this is definitely going to give you the details on how, and from somebody who was a part of a lot of it. Not blaming it on her solely, but she was also one of these careless people. And now we're in this very dangerous time where billionaires are influencing governments. And yeah, that's scary. And now apparently she's working with like litigating or something with, or she works in tech policy, including artificial intelligence. And so if she, anything to go by how she's been at Facebook, I don't have no hope for her putting no actual regulation into AI, because she'll probably be like, "Well, people will use it for good. They won't do these things with it." Delusional. Delulu bird. So that was my carelessly constructed review of Careless People. I bitch was just trying to wrap up a video and my camera started overheating. So sorry for how choppy this video is. Anyway, all I was saying is this is my careless review. I don't think that's a good word. I just don't know how to structure it. But this is my review of Careless People. So I want to know your thoughts, especially if you've read it, and your thoughts, especially on the author. Because that's where a lot of my hang-ups come. But I still think it's a book worth reading. Even if sometimes I wanted to smack Miss Sarah Wynne Williams. So, let me know your thoughts. Have I moved on? I was trying to think if I had read any other nonfiction after this. I did start something else, but I've had to put it down right now. I can't. So let me know your thoughts down below and what you're reading. That's it. Oh, also, are you on any of Facebookie's platforms? I refuse to call them Meta. Your mom named you Facebook, I'm gonna call you Facebook. Okay, that's it. Thanks for watching. Stay blessed, hydrated, moisturized, and sunscreen. I'll see you in my next one. Bye.